other topic. Up till now, we have studied about, we were studying about the chapter that is plant physiology, where we were studying in the transportation of plants, that is movement of substances in the plants from one place to other place. And up till now, we have studied that how does this transportation takes place. So I'll just go with the flow. I'm just going once. I'll just revise you with all the topics from first slide, very first slides. That is, so first we have discussed about plant physiology. That is, how does the what are the characteristic features of the plant and how does the transportation takes place in the plant. Okay. So next, in the next slide, we have discussed about what is the transpiration and how does transpiration takes place in the plants, and what are the reasons for the transport system. And next, in the next slide, we have discussed about short distance transport. That is, how does the transportation takes place in short distance plants. That is, we have further divided into passive transport and active transport. In passive transport, it is again as diffusion and facilitated diffusion. Next, in the next transport, we have discussed about long distance transport, that is through xylem and phloem vessels. Okay, and we have discussed in the next slide, we have discussed about what are the various parts of a plant and where does this transportation takes place, and how does the xylem and phloem what are the functions of xylem and phloems. Okay, in the next part, we have discussed about diffusion. That is, it is a passive process which does not require any energy. That is, movement of substances from higher concentration to lower concentration without the use of energy. Okay, and what are the factors of diffusion? I have discussed in the next slide. Next, we have discussed about facilitated diffusion. That is, use of certain amount of carrier proteins or certain substances as facilitators for the movement of substances from higher concentration to lower concentration in a passive diffusion. That is, it is also a passive transport without the use of energy. Instead of energy, we are using certain amount of carrier proteins. Okay. So next, and also we have discussed about secondary proteins, that is sympotars, antipotars and unipotars. Factors affecting facilitated diffusion, that is large molecules, proteins, channel proteins, etc. Next, what is the difference between simple diffusion versus facilitated diffusion? Next, active transport, that is movement of substances from higher concentration to lower concentration against the concentration gradient. That is, you require certain amount of energy for the movement of substances because it is going from low concentration against the concentration gradient. That is, from low concentration to higher concentration. Okay. So, and what are the factors affecting active transport? How does the active transport takes place? Next, factors affecting active transport. And in the last topic, we have, in the last video, we have discussed about osmosis. That is, movement of substances from higher concentration to lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. That is, a substance is acting as a semi-permeable membrane in between, so that the movement is taking place through that semi-permeable membrane. Okay, and we've discussed in detail about the potato experiment and osmosis in animal cell, osmosis in plant cell, that is isotonic, hypertonic and hypotonic solutions. And next, and we have discussed about how does the in detail about how it is taking place in the plant cell. And also we have discussed about imbibition, that is movement of diffusion. Imbibition is a type of diffusion where the water is absorbed by solid particles, that is through example, during the rains, wooden absorbs more amount of water and swelled up. Okay, and what else we have discussed about? We've discussed about factors affecting imbibition. So today we are starting with a topic called as water potential. What is mean by water potential? Water potential is nothing but potential of water molecules to do some work. Certain amount of work is being done by the water molecules. That condition is called as water potential. Okay, the water molecule systems are continuously moving and randomly, which indicates that these particles contain certain amount of kinetic energy. When in a particular beaker, when water molecules are continuously moving, how does they move? Without energy, without certain amount of push, non-living organism cannot move. So unless and until you have certain amount of energy in your PC or in your mobile phone, it cannot work. Yes or no? So energy is nothing but the battery or charge. So unless and until there is a charge present in your phones or whatever you are using, so it does not work. So similarly, unless and until there is a certain amount of energy present in the water molecule, it does not move. So when the water molecule is moving, it creates certain amount of energy. That is, it has certain amount of energy. That energy is nothing but kinetic energy. Usually in a pure water state, the amount of energy is very high. Okay, in a pure water state, the amount of energy is very high. So water will have water will also have certain amount of kinetic energy. If we take pure water, so in this water molecule maximum, and hence they have maximum kinetic energy. In a pure water molecule, you have more amount of water molecules. There is no solution present, or there is no extra material, extra concentration is not present. So when there is no extra concentration, only the water molecules are present in the pure water. When there is only pure water, the more amount of water molecule, the more amount of kinetic energy present in the substance, okay, in the beaker, okay. And the potential to do work is also maximum. Of course, basic example I'll give you. If there is a construction of a building, then you have, if you have 10 people working there, and on the other side, if you have 100 people working there, where there is more energy? Of course, where there are 100 people. Yes or no? So similarly, here also what happens, when there is more amount of pure water, the more amount of maximum potential energy is present, and maximum amount of work will be done with that pure water. That is, more amount of work can be done with this 100 people rather when compared to with this 10 people, okay. And here the term, it is represent the term, the symbol, the water potential is represented by a symbol called as psi. That is spelled as psi. It's not psi, it's psi, okay. It's written as psi, but it's called as psi, okay. And it is expressed in the units called as pascals or bars. Pascals or bars. The term water potential was first used by Slater and Taylor. Slater and Taylor in the year 1960. Slater and Taylor in the year 1960. And the value of pure water is always represented as 0. The value of pure water potential is always represented as 0. Water potential is a simple difference between the potential energy of water in a unit volume and potential energy of water in a pure water. That is, in a particular beaker, the volume of water potential is always compared with the in a beaker containing the volume of water in the pure state. It is concentrated state, pure state. The comparison will be between these two states, okay. So what is it? We'll study in the next slide. That is matrix potential. Matrix potential is nothing but it is usually absorption of water molecules in the colloidal substances. Colloidal is nothing but outside the, outer walls of the plant cell, okay. Outer wall of the plant cell, or surfaces, at the surfaces of the plant body. It is usually seen in the herbaceous plants. Herbaceous is nothing but very small plants, okay. Matrix potential is usually seen in very small plants, that is herbaceous plants. It is represented by WM. So psi m. The water potential for matrix potential is represented as psi m, okay, and which is equals to solute potential plus pressure potential. What is that? We'll discuss in later. Now coming to solute potential. Solute potential is nothing but addition of some chemical components or chemical substances to the pure water, which is called as solute potential. For example, you have got a pure water in a beaker and you are going to add some amount of salt in it or some amount of sugar in it. That pure water will be changed into some concentrated solution that will act upon the pure water, and the amount of pure water molecules and the amount of energy which is present in the pure water will be decreased, because the NaCl molecules will attract all the water molecules towards them, and there is no kinetic energy present, or there is no random movement going on in that soluted water. So that condition is called as solute potential. It is the decrease in the chemical potential of water due to the occurrence of solute particles in it. Solute particles can be anything: inorganic components, organic components, salt, sugar, anything, okay. The potential of osmotic, osmotic pressure, solute potential or osmotic pressure. Why do we call as osmotic pressure is, initially just now I told you that the water potential for pure water is usually 0. So when you are acting certain amount of substances to the water, what happens? Its water potential is decreasing. Yes or no? It's not increasing, it's decreasing. So what will be the potential of that? -1, of course, -1. So usually what is the definition for osmosis? Movement of substances from higher concentration to lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. Yes or no? So in this also same thing happens. Movement of substances is taking place from the higher concentration to the lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane, okay. That just because of which we are also calling it as a osmotic potential, okay. Solute potential in a solution depends upon the total number of solute particles. The high number of solute particles, the more will be the solute potential, okay, and the less will be the pure water potential. If solute concentration increases, of course potential decreases. That is, if for example, if there are 100 people and we are 10 people, okay. So if suppose if there are 100 solute particles and only 10 pure water molecules, when this is increasing, it is going to 110, then this will again increase. I'll just give you example of 50 to 50, okay. If suppose this is 50 and this is also 50, that is water potential. Pure water is 50 and solute particles are 50. When the solute particles increases, that it increases to 60, and then it decreases to 40, 70, 30, 80, 20, like that. When the solute particles increases, water potential of pure water decreases, okay. Solute potential in the leaves of most temperate region crops ranges from -20 to -10 bars, because usually we know that leaves contain photosynthetic pigments, and usually leaves are the places where phloem transportation of water transportation of food materials, through which transportation of food materials takes place, that is production of food is taking place in the leaves. So there is no pure water present there. Water is always covered up with most of the inorganic and organic substances, okay. In leaves, the usually xerophytes, the value will be even less than -100 bars, that is it is very less, that is -100 bars. More amount of solute particles are present in the xerophytes, that is resorted conditions, whereas in the usually in the leaves it is usually -20 to -10 bars, okay. Solute potential in leaf cell sap is more negative during the day and less negative during the night. Why do we call it as during the day? Because during the daytime photosynthesis process takes place, due to which movement of organic and inorganic ions takes place, and during the night time when there is no water photosynthetic process taking place, there is less amount of organic solutes which are mixed up with the pure water. During the daytime usually the pure water is getting mixed up with organic and inorganic salts, due to which the purity of the water decreases and it goes to -degrees. Whereas in the night time there is no photosynthesis taking place, and there is less chances of water getting contaminated with the solutes. So it is less, it is more closer to the zero potential, okay. So coming to next slide, it is pressure potential. When a cell absorbs of water, the cell's wall exerts pressure. Of course, whenever there is a cell absorbing water molecule, more amount of pressure is being exerted on the cells. That is called as wall pressure. It is the walls of the cells are absorbing more amount of pressure. That is called as wall pressure. Hydrostatic pressure develops in the vacuole, which is known as Turger pressure, and or pressure potential. That is nothing but when a cell absorbs more amount of water, the cell creates certain amount of pressure. That pressure is called as Turger pressure or pressure potential, which is represented as psi p, is equal and opposite to wall pressure. Wall pressure is nothing but the pressure which is exerting on the walls of the cells. It is all usually positive. It is not negative like other bars. It is not negative. It is usually in the positive way. In plasmolyzed cells, it is 0 and negative in xylem elements during the rapid transpiration. When there is continuous movement of water and the transpiration is taking place, the xylem elements and in the leaves, it is usually 0. Whereas in the leaves, it is usually +3 to +5 bars during the summer afternoons and is about 15 bars at night. Because in the summers, usually transpiration does not take place more. So, more amount of water is being stored. So, it is going to the plus state. Okay. At 0 Turger pressure, water potential is equal to the water potential, pressure potential, water potential and solute potential are usually 0 at 0 Turger pressure. Usually equal at 0 Turger pressure. Then there is no hydrostatic pressure and or where there is 0 pressure, both three of them, that is pressure potential, osmotic potential and water potential are usually same. If the constant pressure in water increases, the pressure potential also increases. Of course, if there is a pressure increasing in the water molecule, the pressure in the water potential also increases. When you are putting some pressure, of course, the down pressure also increases, due to which the cell or anything, whatever you are putting pressure, if you are pressuring on something, what happens? It gets expanded. Yes or no? Some material, whatever you keep, it gets expanded. That is, it is also creating certain amount of pressure to get expanded or to get relief from that pressure which is applied on it. Okay. So coming to next slide. Now we are discussing about long distance transport. Long distance transport is nothing but movement of substances from one place to other place in a long plants, very long plants. You can see like example eucalyptus plant, coconut plant, banana tree. coconut tree, banana tree. So all these trees, in the long distance trees, how does the transportation takes place? Okay. So first one, absorption of water. How does the absorption of water takes place? Here, this is very important. I mean, these are very general points. You can have a glance. There's nothing to explain here. I'm just going through all the points. You can have an idea about it. Aerial parts of the plants can absorb only a small quantity of water from atmosphere when it is saturated. Most of the water absorption occurs from soil through roots. For this, the roots must be metabolically active, respiring aerobically and continuously growing. Of course, the roots should be metabolically active. So that is, they should exchange the compounds, simple compounds, complex compounds, and they should having movement of air gases should be done and continuously growing. Roots are usually restricted to that area of soil which lies well below the water table. That is, what is that water table is? Depth at which the earth's crust is saturated with water. Certain roots are restricted to the water level where it is absent, okay? And certain roots only grow to the certain height where the water level is present. Usually water absorption occurs in plants through roots, but sometimes through shoots also. Usually water absorbs from soil, but sometimes through the green branches which are present just above the soil. Through those branches also water absorption takes place in certain plants. The zone of the rapid absorption is characterized by the presence of root hairs. Root hairs help in absorption of water from soil by increasing the surface area of root. Maximum absorption of water occurs through root hair zone. You all know that root hairs are very important parts of the plant body which absorb more amount of water. We have discussed in our first year topics how does the root hair represent and what are the main parts of the root hairs. You can go through it if you have any doubts. Okay. Some amount of water absorption occurs by zone of elongation, but no absorption takes place by root cap and meristematic zone. That is, we have discussed about root hair, that is root tip, from root tip to zone of elongation, till where in between you have meristematic cells, zone, vascular tissues and many other cells. Okay. So all these cells are present in the root hair or root tip. There is no water absorption takes place by the root cap, but it is usually taking place by meristematic zone and zone of elongation. Okay. A root hair is the unicellular tubular prolongation of the outer wall of the epiderma. It is epiblema. It is generally delicate and short-lived. The cell wall of the root hair is, next slide. The cell wall of the root hair is composed of two distinct layers. The outer layer, which is composed of pectic substances, helps to adhere soil particles. The inner layer is made up of cellulose. The outer layer is made up of pectic particles, whereas the inner layer is made up of cellulose particles. The cell wall is permeable to both source and solvent molecules. It surrounds plasma membrane and thin layer of cytoplasm. For long distance, plants have developed a mass or bulk flow system which operates through development of pressure difference between source and the sink. Source is nothing but the soil. Sink is nothing but the place where it has to be get deposited. In mass or bulk flow, all the substances dissolved or suspended in solution travel at the same pace, that is same speed. Long distance bulk movement of substances that occurs through conducting or vascular tissues, that is xylem and phloem. Xylem translocation is mainly from roots to aerial parts. That is, it processes water with mineral salts, some organic nitrogen and hormones. Phloem translocates organic substances and inorganic substances from leaves to all other parts of the plants, that is from storage organs. Okay. Storage translocates organic nutrients to those particles which require some early or newly formed leaves and fruits. Usually storage of food materials or hormones or growth regulators are usually transported to storage organs or newly formed fruits or leaves. Okay. Translocation operates due to positive hydrostatic pressure gradient as in phloem, or a negative hydrostatic pressure in the gland. Positive hydrostatic pressure is composed in case of phloem cells, whereas negative hydrostatic pressure is composed in case of xylem cells. So coming to next slide. So how does this transportation takes place? It takes place by 2 points, that is 2 main pathways. First pathway is apoplast pathway. In this cell, what happens? You can see the diagram itself. There is a blue colored structure. Okay, there are blue colored lines at the corners of the cells. You know? Those cells are called as plasmodermata. Those places are called as plasma membrane. Those cells are called as plasma membrane cells. In between, you can see epidermis, cortex, endodermis and pericycle. Okay. So, in a single cell or in single molecule, you can see there, first will be the epidermal layer. Before the epidermal layer, there are root hairs. Okay. From the root hairs, the water will be absorbed to epidermis, then to cortex, then to endodermis, then to pericycle, and next to xylem. So, how does this takes place? In the apoplast pathway, the free diffusional space outside the plasma membrane is the apoplast. This is interrupted by the Casparian strip in roots, air spaces between the plant cells and the cuticula of the plant. That is nothing but when the movement of water molecules takes place, it usually takes place through that blue line. You can see the blue line, that is nothing but plasma membrane. The movement of water molecules which is occurring only through that blue line, that is called as apoplast pathway, which is interrupted by the Casparian strip. Casparian strip is nothing but that orange colored structure in between. You can see that orange color structure is interrupting the movement of water molecules which is going through apoplast pathway. Okay. Next, in the next slide, we can see it is the second pathway is called as symplast pathway. Here, in clearly you can see the diagram where in the blue in the diagram you can see a blue line going here. That blue line is called as apoplast pathway. The movement of water molecules is going through the cell wall. That is nothing but through the plasma membrane of cells. It is not going from inside the cell. It is going through the plasma membranes of the cells. Okay. Or from the cell wall of the cells, from one cell to others, only through the cell walls of from one cell to other cell. That is called as apoplast pathway. Whereas symplast pathway, it is going in between the cells, or you can say from one cytoplasm to other cytoplasm. Movement of water molecules or substances or ions from one cell to the other cell, or from one cytoplasm through one other cytoplasm is called as symplast pathway. Okay. And in this pathway, it is very time consuming process, because in one cell you have many molecules or many substances like cell organelles, endodermis, nucleus, vacuole. A water molecule should pass through all these substances and reach the other cell. Yes or no? But in case of plasma membrane, it is very empty. So it is easily transported from one plasma membrane to other plasma membrane. Whereas in the symplast pathway, when it is going through the cell, it is a time consuming process. So in the diagram, look at the diagram. In the diagram, in between, you can see a orange colored structure. That is nothing but endodermis. Previously, we have seen a zoomed structure. Here you can see a complete picture where the first will be from the root hair. That is, from the root hair, water will be absorbed. In case of apoplast pathway, through the cortex, that is in between, through the cortex, it is going through the cell wall or plasma membranes. Then it is reaching to the endodermal layer. In the endodermis, you have a red line in between. That red line indicates the Casparian strip. That Casparian strip is acting as a barrier for the apoplast pathway. But in certain cases, the Casparian strip is absent in certain parts of the cells. In certain parts of the cells, the Casparian strip is absent. When there is absence of Casparian strip in certain parts of the cells, the apoplast pathway is again reaching through that cell wall of that absence of Casparian strip. Okay. If the Casparian strip is absent, then the apoplast pathway can continue further. But if the Casparian strip is present, the apoplast pathway cannot go further. Usually the Casparian strip is absent at certain points of the cells. So apoplast pathway can go through that place. But in case of symplast pathway, this movement of water molecule is from one cell to other. So you can see it is going in between the cells, and it does not have any objection with the Casparian strip. It can easily pass through the Casparian strip and reach the xylem vessels. You can see the xylem vessels, that those pink colored structures are nothing but xylem vessels. Whereas in between you have pericycle, and next you have green colored structures are nothing but phloem vessels. Okay. So I am once again explaining. The inner side of the plasma membrane is the symplast. The symplast pathway is made up of continuous because of the presence of plasmodesmata across the cell membrane. What are plasmodesmata? In the previous slide you can see, in between pipe-like structures. Those are nothing but plasmodesmata. Connections between one cell to other cell are called as plasmodesmata. Okay. So because of the presence of plasmodesmata, the movement of water molecule is very easy for symplast pathway. Okay. And amino acids, sugars and flow of ions can be easily done through this symplast pathway. Symplast pathway allow direct cytoplasm to cytoplasm flow of water nutrients along with concentration gradient. But it is very time consuming process. As I told you, it has to reach all the molecules present inside the cell. maximum movement of water molecule is through the apoplast pathway because it is going through the cell plasma membrane and it is very fast process. Okay. So next slide. Here now we will be studying about ascent of sap. Ascent of sap is nothing but movement of water molecules from roots to aerial parts of the plant cells. Okay. It occurs at the lumen of tracheidy elements or vessels and tracheids with the rate of about 75 centimeter per minute. That is nothing but in about 1 minute 75 centimeters, the distance of 75 centimeters can be carried by a water molecule in the xylem vessels, by the xylem vessels or tracheids. Okay. Many theories have been put forth, but there are two main theories which are being usually utilized. That is, the first one is root pressure theory, the second one is transpiration pull theory. One more we have, we will be discussing it about it in the later classes. So root pressure theory, what is root pressure theory, we will be discussing in the next slide. That is, root pressure is not, it was first, root pressure theory was first proposed by Priestley in the year 1916. That is, root pressure theory was first proposed by Priestley in the year 1916. Okay. So in this theory, what he is explaining, when the absorption of water takes place continuously and the transportation of water is stopped, that is, evaporation is stopped through the leaves, that is through stomata, which ultimately accumulates water and further results in creation of certain amount of pressure inside the roots or xylem. You will not get the definition directly. I will explain you in a simple terms. That is, for example, you are filling a tank, okay, and you are just closing its lid, but you are filling the tank and you have got some tap to it. You are opening the tap. What happens when you are filling the tank and you are opening the tap? Is there is a pressure created? No, because whenever you are you are filling the tank and opening the tap, so ultimately water movement is continuous. Yes or no? But when you are closing the tap but still filling the tank, what happens? What happens? Water gets leaked up. Yes or no? When you are closing the tap and still filling the tank, what happens? Water gets leaked up from the tank. It overflows. Yes or no? Similarly, in case of plants also, what happens? When more amount of water is taken place by the roots and there is no transpiration taken place by the plant cell, that is through stomata, there is pressure created in the plant cell, due to which there is a push in the plant. That is, due to push, what happens? The lid of the tank gets open up. Yes. So similarly here also what happens? When there is a more amount of water present in the soil and there is no transpiration taking place in the plant cell or in the leaves, what happens? Certain amount of pressure is created in the plant cell which transports the water to certain height. So that movement of water takes place. Our ultimate measure is the water should move from down to upward against the gravity. Yes or no? It is against the gravity. So it is little difficult. So how does it take place? That is through pressure. So how we have experimented it in a manner. So you can see there in the below you have seen a diagram there. In the first on the left hand side you can see a small stem where you have a tube like structure attached to it. Initially the water level is to a certain height, but after some time when you are pouring more amount of water to the soil, what happens? Amount of water which is present in the soil is usually pushed towards the upstairs or to the aerial parts of the stem. Here I have just removed, you can see, you can take an example. You can take an example of a small stem which does not have any aerial parts. Okay, which don't have any aerial parts. Okay, which don't have any aerial parts. You can take this example. This is a pencil. Now suppose this is your roots and this is your stem. You don't have any aerial parts. That is, you don't have any leaves to it. Okay, but what happens when there is continuous pouring of water to the soil? Water is absorbed by the roots. But when there are no leaves, there is no transpiration taking place. So what happens when there is continuous movement of water? Water gets accumulated in the root system, and you can see when there is no leaves or root system, water gets evaporates on the stem. Small water droplets are present on the stem of the on the stem part, on the trunk. You can see similarity you can see in the diagram, that when he has removed in the experiment, that is Priestley, in the experiment he has removed the upper parts of the plant and he has just added a U-like tube structure where he has kept the movement of water is to a certain height. After some time, when there is continuous movement of water in the roots, what happened? The movement of, or the level of water is been increased. You can see there level of water is not same in both the diagrams. The level of water is being increased. Why? Because there is a pressure created in the root. Similarly, if now in the absence of this tube, what will be there? The complete stem will be there, yes or no? So in the complete stem, similar process takes place when there is no transpiration taking place. The movement of water is being transported to the aerial parts by the pressure which is created through the roots. That's why this process or theory is called as root pressure theory. That is nothing but when the absorption of water takes place continuously and there is no transpiration taking place, certain amount of pressure is created in the root, which ultimately results in excursion or production of certain amount of pressure, which moves or which facilitates movement of water to the aerial parts. Okay. So in the next slide, due to which what happens? Now we have seen that this in the experiment, but usually we have leaves, we have everything to the plants. So what, when continuous movement of water takes place, so where should this, when the pressure exceeds to a certain height, then what should happen? Where should this water go? You can observe certain amount of pressure. Just now we have given an example of water tank. The water tank can fill up to its limit only. When there is excess of limit, what happens? It gets leaked up, yes or no? Similarly, in the plants also, when there is certain amount of capability, until then the plant can take amount of water. But when there is more amount of water present in the plant, or where continuous movement of water is done, what happens? Due to which what happens? There are certain amount of substances in the leaf margins called as hydrothodes or water pores. You have certain amount of pores or holes, you can see, called as hydrothodes or water pores, through which water evaporates in the form of water vapor, or certain droplets. Water gets accumulated in the leaves in the form of water vapors through these hydrothodes. Loss of water in the liquid state from uninjured parts of the plants is known as guttation. It usually occurs from the tips of margins of leaves during night time or early mornings. Why night time? Because during the daytime transpiration takes place. Movement of water is taking place through stomata. But during the night time, when there is no transpiration taking place, where should this water go? To avoid the extra pressure in the plant, this water is been going through these hydrothodes which are present at the leaf margin. That process is called as guttation process, which was invented by Bregerstein in 1887. Bregerstein in 1877, scientist invented this guttation process, through which the water molecules is evaporated in the form of liquid droplets during the night time. Usually during the marshy areas or winter season, what happens? More amount of water is being stored in the plants. So due to creation of extra pressure by the root pressure theory, the water gets leaked or removed in the form of water molecules through these hydrothodes or water molecules. This process is called as guttation process. Okay. This is usually done in plants like example cucurbita, potato, tomato and many grasses. You can see small water droplets. I have given you a diagram picture over there. In the region of guttation, the leaves possess special pores called hydrothodes. Hydrothodes or water pores are permanently open pores without any guard cells. They don't have any guard cells, or the cells which are guard cells are immobile. Immobile is they cannot move. But the guard cells which are present in the stomata are mobile. We will be studying about stomata in brief in the next topic. Internally, a hydrothode leads to a loose parenchymatous tissue called epitheme. Root pressure usually causes the flow of sap from the vein to epitheme and then to hydrothode. Usually the movement of water is from vein to epitheme. Epithemes are nothing but small parenchymatous cells which are present inside the hydrothodes. Okay, from vein to epitheme to hydrothodes. So through these hydrothodes, the pressure whatever created in the plant cell is being evaporated in the form of water through these hydrothodes. Okay. Gutted water contains minute qualities of both inorganic and organic substances. It is usually water which is present in the gutted liquid, but very few amount of inorganic and organic substances also present in the gutted water. So what is the next slide? What are the limitations of root pressure? This theory was not completely accepted, and there are certain what are the limitations of this root pressure theory? Why it is not accepted is root pressure theory can only provide to certain amount, that the push is only to certain height. It cannot push in long tall trees. The push is only to a certain height, Hence, root pressure does not play a major role in movement in tall trees. Root pressure contributes towards the establishment of continuous chains of water molecules in the xylem, which often break under enormous tension created by transpiration pool. That is, when there is continuous movement of water molecule, what happens? If there is a transpiration taking place, the movement will be continuous. Unless the pressure is more created, what happens? The movement of water is taking place through guttation. So there is a breakage in the chain in the water process. So because of these limitations, this theory was not completely accepted. Okay, root pressure theory is nothing but it is the theory where absorption of water is continuous unless and until there is transpiration taking place. When there is transpiration stop, the pressure created in the plant, due to which there is a push in the water molecule towards aerial parts of the plant. It is only accepted in small plants and it is not accepted in tall plants. And due to creation of this pressure, some amount of water during the absence of transpiration, the leaves or plants release these water molecules. Due to extra pressure, the water molecules is being released through the leaves by a process called guttation. Okay. So next, in the next topic, we will be studying about transpiration pull theory in detail. Up till now, whatever you have studied, just go through all the topic. Study about root tip, root cap. You have studied it in detail about in the first year's topic. So go through it if you have any doubts, and you can